Hey everyone, it's Brad from Yu-Gi-Oh! Team Plus One here, and today I'm going to be going over one of the new decks that came out of High Speed Riders, and this is Psy-frames. So Psy-frames are kind of a hand trap oriented deck. All their monsters are sort of like hand traps, and they all do something when your opponent does an action, really. But the deck revolves around negating and interrupting your opponent's plays, and then it makes synchro monsters, and then also their deck relies around not having monsters on your side of the field. So it's an interesting deck. There hasn't really been one similar to this at all in the past, and I think that's really cool about this. The deck is definitely good. It has potential to be in the meta, and the problem that I see with it is that it is reliant on your opponent playing cards, and that can be an issue sometimes, depending on how you play them. But also, there's an issue for people who aren't playing these, and that's if they don't know what Psy-frames do. So I'm making this video not only to educate people who want to play Psy-frames, but people who want to know how to play against them. And Psy-frames, you really need to know what they do if you want to have a chance against them, honestly. So all of them kind of revolve around summoning Psy-frame driver and the monster that's activating its effect. So you summon the monster you activate its effect from your hand, then you can summon Psy-frame driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. This is going to combo really well with their field spell, which when a Psy-frame monsters are special summoned to your side of the field, you can immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using only Psy-frame monsters you control. So this is going to allow you to negate their card, then go into a synchro such as their boss monster synchros, which can remove themselves from the field so you can continue using Psy-frames. Or just any other synchro you want to. Like you can go Black Rose on your opponent's turn quite frequently. But I'm going to go ahead and go through all the main deck cards first. So we got Psy-frame driver, which is a level 6. All of these are light psychic types. And this is the non-tuner of the deck. 2500 attack, 0 defense, so pretty big. Then we got the first one, which is Psy-frame Gear Alpha, level 1 tuner. So there's 2 level 1 tuners and 3 level 2 tuners. So none of them can be normal summon or set, and they all have to be special summoned by a card effect, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. So when your opponent normal or special summons a monsters, multiple or single, while you control no monsters, except during the damage step, you can special summon both this card from your hand and one Psy-frame driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do, add one Psy-frame card from your deck to your hand, except Psy-frame Gear Frame Alpha. And then this is an important little clause at the end. So during the end phase, banish the face-up monster special summoned by this effect. So when this is resolved, it puts that condition on the field. So even if Alpha is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, and your driver remains face-up on the field during the end phase, it will be banished. So that is a good thing to note. Alright, so this guy is your searcher for the deck, really. He can search for your spell, your trap, or any of the other monsters, whichever you really need to get to. And he's really good for going turn 1, because then your opponent is kind of hesitant, because he knows you're playing Psy-frames now and doesn't want to do as much. But here we go with the next one. We got Psy-frame Gear Beta, and this is a light level 1 tuner again. So, must be special summoned by card effect, cannot be special summoned by other ways. When an opponent's monster declares an attack while you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand and one Psy-frame driver from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And if you do, destroy the attacking monster and then end the battle phase. During the end phase, banish the face-up monster special summoned by this effect. So this guy is kind of like a battle fader on steroids, honestly. He not only brings out Psy-frame driver and himself, he destroys the monster that attacked, and then he ends the battle phase, which can lead to you bringing out a synchro monster, which will interrupt their main phase too. So we got the next ones now, and these guys are all going to be the card negators. So I'll start with Psy-frame Gear Delta. So 1200 attack, level 2 tuner. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell card while you control no monsters, you can special summon both this card and a Psy-frame driver. And if you do, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that spell card. During the end phase, banish the face-up monster special summoned by this effect. So this guy is really, really powerful because your deck really likes your Circuit, the field spell, and Psy-frame Overload, which is your continuous trap. And if your opponent activates MST, you can just go ahead and say, nope, bring this guy out and make a level 8 synchro if you have the field spell, or get to banish some cards if you have Overload out. Then we have Psy-frame gear Epsilon. So Epsilon is the exact same thing as Delta, except he negates traps. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a trap card while you control no monsters, you can special summon both this card and one Psy-frame driver, and if you do, negate that activation and destroy that trap card. During the end phase, banish the face-up monsters that are special summoned by this effect. So very, very similar, actually the exact same as Delta, except it negates traps instead of spells, and also is 1500 attack compared to 1200 attack. Then we have Gamma, which is the exact same as those two, but it negates monster effects. So during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control no monsters, you can special summon this card and one Psy-frame driver from your hand or deck or graveyard, and if you do, negate the activation and destroy that monster. During the end phase, banish the face of monsters special summoned by this effect. So that's all the monsters. The last three, Epsilon, Delta, and Gamma, were very similar. Beta was kind of like the Battle Fader that destroyed a monster. And then Alpha is your Searcher that responds to summons, normal or special summons. Now I'm going to go ahead and get into the field spell effect for this deck. So the field spell is pretty much necessary for this deck to get in a solid position to win. So Psy-frame Circuit. If a Psy-frame monster is special summoned to your side of the field, except during the damage step, you can immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon one synchro monster using only Psy-frame monsters you control. At the start of the damage step, if a Psy-frame monster you control battles an opponent's monster, you can discard one Psy-frame monster. Your battling monster gains attack equal to the discarded monster's attack until the end of the turn. So this makes any of your guys that are useless against your opponent's deck into like Kalut or Honest or something. Then we have their continuous trap, which is by far one of the most broken traps I've ever seen. So Psy-frame Overload. Once per turn, you can banish one Psy-frame monster from your hand or face up from your side of the field. This is cost. Then target one card on the field, also part of the cost. Banish it face down. This card banishes cards face down. Like, if it was a spell or trap that was set, you don't get to see what it was. It just goes to the banish zone face down. And there's nothing that can bring those back, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're gone for the game. But during either player's turn, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Add one Psy-frame card from your deck to your hand, except Psy-frame Overload. So this card is really good. So it's a floating removal card. So this is the out to all your problems in the deck. And this is what you have to watch out for if you're playing against the deck. So now I'm going to get into the last two cards of the archetype. We got Psy-frame Lord Omega. So level 8 Psychic Synchro, 2800 attack, 2200 defense. And it's a generic synchro. Once per turn during either player's main phase, you can banish this card and one random card from your opponent's hand face up until the next standby phase. So I'm going to go ahead and break that down. So you declare his effect, and your opponent has the chance to respond then, and then at resolution, then it picks the random card and banishes this card at resolution. And then during your next standby phase, both of them are returned. So this goes back to the field in the position it was in, and then the card goes back to your opponent's hand. And similar to Wind Up Rabbit, but it limits your opponent's plays, or it limits your plays if you're playing against this. So it's a really solid effect. Once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, you can target one banished card, return it to the graveyard. So this combos really well if you have a banished Psy-frame Overload, because it's during either player's turn except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard. This returns cards to the graveyard, which is very different, because you can return cards to the graveyard under cards like Macrocosmos. So its last effect is if this card is in your graveyard, you can target one other card in either player's graveyard, shuffle both that card and this card from the graveyard into the deck. So this guy, like, recycles himself, and he clears himself from the field so you can summon more Psy-frames, and he is just huge. He is an amazing card for this deck, and for a lot of other decks, as I mentioned, he's really good in Infernoids in my past video. But also he has that really good synergy with the Psy-frame Overload, and he probably has some good synergy with cards like Mizuki and things like that. But last one, we got Psy-frame Lord Zeta. Once returned during either player's turn, you can target one special summon monster your opponent controls in face-up attack position. Banish both that monster and this card from the field, but return them in your next standby phase. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target one other Psy-frame card in your graveyard, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, add that target to your hand. So this guy can also clear himself from the field, and he can also remove your opponent's monsters until the next standby phase as well. So He's really, really powerful as well. He's 2500 attack for a level 7, a generic level 7. He's really strong. So now I'm going to get into more of the discussion of how we deal with this deck if you're not playing them. So this deck, it really needs its field to be clear to be able to play. So it's going to be needing to run cards such as Needle Sealing, so it can clear face-up monsters. And then Wind Up Rabbit is another one I've been seeing, which I enjoy. So both of these help clear your field. Wind Up Rabbit brings a face-up monster to the field, and then you can activate Needle Sealing, banish the Wind Up Rabbit so it's gone, and then destroy all other face-up monsters on the field, if there were 4 or more face-up. This is also a good interrupter. And then there's cards like Torrential, which helps the deck out a lot. But cards that really hurt the deck, Book of Moon, if you activate this in response to them something like Card D, which is something they run a lot of the time, or you activate this in response to the activation of Circuit to synchro summon with a monster, then it doesn't get to resolve because one of them is face down. And then they have a face down monster that won't be banished in the end phase, and then they'll be stuck with a monster and can't be able to respond to any of your cards. Book of Moon definitely hurts them. Anything else that can flip face down probably is very useful as well. And then something else that's good to consider is being able to have chainable cards. So if they summon something and they activate Circuit, you want to be able to MST that in chain to the activation of Circuit, so it won't resolve and they'll be stuck with monsters on the field again and can't negate the MST. Something else to note, these guys, Delta, Epsilon, and Gamma, are able to activate in the damage step. So that is very, very important to note. Like, if you have no monsters on the field and your opponent attacks with, let's say, Cosmo Farm Girl, and they activate the effect of Search by paying 500 life points, you can activate Gamma, negate that effect, and destroy it. In that situation, though, you would not be able to synchro summon with Circuit just because it has that clause, except during the damage step. But these guys are definitely cool. I like them. I've been testing with them. I can show you my deck in a later video. But for sure, you need to know what they do. It is absolutely necessary. So you don't walk into something that you didn't know could happen, like you don't play a spell and then get it negated, then lose a card in your hand that you needed for your combo. Like, you don't blind MST their back row, they negate it, and then you lose your last combo piece to Omega because he activated his effect. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I am definitely hyped about this set. I've talked about that kind of before, but this set was really, really cool. I've tried Speedroids, I've tried the Resonators, which were a lot better than I expected, surprisingly. And then Psy-frames, I've tried quite a bit, and I've been enjoying them. I don't know if they're Tier 1. I don't think they will be. They didn't do much in the OCG, which I know is kind of like comparing apples and oranges now when you compare OCG to TCG. But I don't think they will be that present, but they're definitely something you should know how to play against in case you are paired up against someone who's playing them, because you can lose quickly if you don't know what to do against this deck. So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to just throw this in here. Recently, I have decided to partner with TGN, the gaming network, and Broadband TV. So one of the main reasons I did this is it's supposed to help me reach out and get with other people and expand my viewer base and help myself grow as a YouTuber, because they have a lot of helpful support, and I'm very appreciative if you guys decide to support me and click on ads. So thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.